Thanks, Jodie. Hi, everyone. I hope you're enjoying the weather. It's quite warm today. We're on summer holidays, so structures slightly gone out of the window. Maybe we're seeing some behaviours at home, or maybe lots of behaviours have reduced because we're in our safe place at home and we're happy in the sunshine. So the title of this session is Managing Challenging Behaviours. But I'd like to invite you to think about this as supporting behaviours of concern. So what we're going to talk about today is what is behaviour, so types of behaviour that would challenge us, understand what behaviour really means, what's actually going on. And it is going to be a whistle-stop tour because we've got 30 minutes, so I hope you're all up for this. What is positive behaviour? I'm going to give you a quick overview of what positive behaviour support approach would be. Look at functions of behaviour because every behaviour serves a function. And then I'm going to offer you some practical strategies and plans to support your child and next steps. So if this might be a bit more complex than you feel you're capable of dealing with as a family, where you can go to get more support. So what is challenging behaviour? Now, as Jodie said, you can pop in the chat as we go along. Use this as an opportunity to sort of put some ideas out there. What is challenging behaviour? What kind of behaviours do you see from your child, or have you witnessed yourself, or things that you may be hearing from school? We're going to give you the opportunity that you might want to use the chat to sort of pop that in. And my question to you would be, who is being challenged? So a few coming through now. So we've got reactive behaviour, fighting, throwing things, swearing, hitting out, yeah, loads. And you're going to see now that actually these are all behaviours that we see, and they have a kind of area that we would find challenging. So one could be public embarrassment. It could be day life disruption, so just getting ready for school, getting up for school, etc. It could be safety concerns, so things that they do actually they're putting themselves in danger, or they may be a danger to others, so they might be aggressive. These behaviours would have safety concerns. Yeah, there's loads of you popping in now. Refusal, meltdowns. It could be exhausting behaviour. So these behaviours, we might be single parents and it is just exhausting. Constant arguing, constant negotiation about everything. Potentially some of our children might have demand avoidant profile. It could be sibling and family conflict. So that's very common. A lot of us will be feeling this. And it could be school and home conflict. So things might be happening in school. We're not hearing about that until we get a call from school. We don't know about it, or vice versa. You're seeing the behaviours at home, but school aren't seeing them. So there's a lot of behaviours there, and it's really nice to see you guys popping in, and there's very common themes there that, you know, you're not on your own with this. This is really, really common. But the hardest part as a parent is feeling judged by others who don't particularly understand this neurodivergence, what a child might be going through. So why is this happening? What can't we see by what our children are going through? Why are these behaviours happening? Well, challenging behaviour is communication, and it's also meeting a need. Can't express their needs effectively, they'll use behaviour that might challenge others. And this behaviour serves a function, a purpose. It's not random, it's not deliberate defiance, it is meeting a need. So you need to keep that in mind as a parent. It's really easy to feel, especially when we're exhausted, to feel like this is deliberate and defiant, but actually we're getting our needs met. So we need to look a little bit deeper, be a bit curious about it. So think about some of these behaviours. Someone's popped in the chat there, emotional dysregulation. Often, a lot of you will have been on Witherslack training sessions before, so your emotional curve and the stress response is a predictable pattern of what goes on inside our bodies when our nervous state during stressful situations or meltdowns. So the stages, so first of all, we'd have a trigger. Something will activate our stress response. And we will start to escalate. So stress hormones will flood the system and emotions will intensify. And then we get to peak crisis. So this is maximum stress response. this is when our survival brain is taken over and there is no logical thinking. So there's no point in talking to your child at this point. This is full stress response. This is fight, flight, freeze. Then we go through the de-escalation stage and stress hormones are starting to clear. Our nervous system is starting to calm down. And then we go into recovery. We're returning to calm. Thinking brain comes back on. We might be quite emotional during this stage because we're starting to probably feel a little bit of shame and upset of something that's going on. And then our strategy as parents is we need to recognise those early stress signs, stay calm and avoid triggering our own stress response. So we might need to wait for recovery before discussing any situation that's happened and think about those stress hormones. Just to make you aware, it can take up to 90 minutes or longer, but usually between 20 and 90 minutes for stress hormones to fully clear the system. Apologies, it seems to be freezing. I'll speak to Witherslack. Jodie will be able to share some slides for you on this. So we need to think about our neurodivergent children as well and emotional maturity. So with this behind, it's not an impairment, it is a delay. So 30% behind. So the average neurotypical brain reaches maturity around mid-20s. We're going to add on 30%. So if we think about acting 18, actually we'll be operating at the age of 12. So think about someone at university. You have to go to university, pay all your bills, access all your lectures, write your assignments, clean your clothes, make meals, all the things that you'd need to do at university. Would we expect that from a 12-year-old? Really, really, when you may have a neurotypical partner, let's say, who is expecting a lot more from your child, who isn't quite there with their executive functions and their emotional maturity. And then we go on at age 16, we'll be operating around 11. Age 14, we'll be operating at age 9. And age 10 will be operating at age as if we were age 7. So it's really important to keep that in mind when we think about some of those meltdowns, some of those behaviours that we see challenging. Actually, we're not quite there. Emotionally, we're not quite there. And our ability to access our executive functions, all the things that we need to be rational, use reason, think about consequence. So positive behaviour support, it's teaching alternative behaviours instead of punishing bad ones. It works by understanding the triggers and the needs and setting clear expectations and teaching skills. When issues happen, we're going to stay calm, teach better choices, use natural consequences. And a few people have asked me, what's a natural consequence? Well, if your child kicked a ball over the wall, well, then the ball's gone. That's kind of a natural consequence. I'm just mindful that some people are saying that the screen is freezing, but I'm going to keep going, Jodie, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay for me so far. It does seem a little bit better, but I'll just keep an eye on it and I'll let you know.
Okay, so the result of this approach, better self-control in our kids because we're teaching them skills and happier family life. So I don't know if anyone's seen this before, just pop in the chat if you've seen it before. So this is something that I'm going to invite you to do. Take a seat. So I've seen this before. It's the function of behaviour. It's a really easy way to remember what could potentially be going on for your child. And so we've got sensory. This helps me feel good, helps me regulate. Escape or avoidance, I want to get away from this. Attention, or I would like to invite you to think about it as connection, notice me, interact with me, and tangible. I want something specific. I want access to something specific. So think about your child's most challenging behaviour. And you can still use the chat, even though I'm not looking at it, Jodie can see it. So thinking about your child's most challenging behaviour, what function do you think it might serve? So is it sensory? Is it escape? Is it attention? Or is it tangible? Now, could it serve more than one function? So, for example, a child leaves the party, you run after them, they've escaped the environment, be escape and attention, and also tangible because you are an object in a sense, that you are the person, the thing they want access to. So by leaving a party, you go after them, then they get attention and access to you. And the fun would serve more than one, but just thinking about your child's behaviour, maybe thinking about what function that might serve as a starter. So behaviour has meaning. Your child's trying to get their needs met, and they might not be, which means it can be changed. Remember, neurodivergent children, they're 30% behind with executive functions and emotional maturity. Doesn't mean to say they won't get mental rather than chronological. And every child has a right to attention, to escape uncomfortable situations, access preferred items if appropriate, and to meet their sensory needs to do so, and it does not cause harm to themselves or others. So some things some of our children would like to do may be deemed as dangerous, so they're at risk, it is a danger to them, or it might not be in their causing any harm to anyone else, etc. So some of you may have come across zones of regulation. This is a visual that I made for a school that I used to work in, and we use zones of regulation. If we haven't got the words to say how we're feeling, how can we communicate with you what's going on for us? We are going to fall into those behaviours that get our needs met much more quicker than trying to communicate something we don't have the words for. So think about zones of regulation with your child, and I want you to try and think about a picture of who they are. So when they're in the green zone, when they're happy, when they're calm, when they're engaging, when they're positively following routines, your focus at this time is having that opportunity to start to build up some skills. Now, this is the time they're throwing something at you, or there's aggressive behaviour, or they're swearing, or that's not the time. When they are in the green zone, they are ready to receive some of this skill building support. So prevention, so thinking about words to communicate. So we might be talking about, are you feeling to learn? You calm. And ready to learn could be ready to go to an activity, etc. Use positive language and meet their needs proactively. So when they are in that zone, it's a really, really good opportunity to teach them new skills. Not all at once, but just maybe one particular thing you want to work on. So when they're in the yellow zone, what you'll see is subtle changes in their behaviour. So they might be increased pacing, they might change their voice a little bit, it might be tense facial expressions. They may avoid eye contact, or if that might not be appropriate for your child, potentially if they don't make eye contact naturally, but they may make up more eye contact. All these things start to show us that they are starting to go up that emotional scale. So our focus at that time would be get them back, do some triggers, offer them comfort, distraction, etc. Tell them what they need, give them what they need, stay calm yourself, and that's easier said than done at times, but you plan. So you're going to start to feel more confident and not go into stress response yourself if you've got a plan yourself. And then we're going to talk about red. Well, what we'd see in those behaviours where we're out of control are rational thoughts gone offline. We are now in fight, flight, freeze mode. Our focus at that time is to keep everyone safe, stay calm, use minimal words. Don't put any demands on them then. We're not going to talk about much with them. In fact, we're probably use the space appropriately. So we might need to kind of get everyone out of the way. If it's in a shopping centre, ask people to move away, feel confident that you're going to deal with this because you've got a bit of a plan, and apply those planned crisis strategies that you may have developed. So yeah, that's red zone. And if we're working on the yellow zone areas, then you might hopefully reduce these red zone. Well, that's the plan. You'd reduce those red zone incidents. Blue zone is a physical check. So we might be settling, but we might still be vulnerable to escalation. So we might start to emotional curve. We're coming down, but we're still upset. So our focus at this time might be gently returning them to the green zone. We're not going to put that many demands on them. Check to see if they're hurt, offer comfort, and wait for full recovery before returning to normal activities. And this goes for when they're feeling poorly. What do you see? What do you see when your child's not feeling well? How do they look? What kind of support in place there? It's exactly the same. So we're going to talk about strategies to support, and the first one we're going to look at is attention. So tell me your firstborn is jealous without telling me your firstborn is jealous. I love that video. I saw it last week and I thought it's perfect for this. So what can we do? How are we going to teach them signs or words to get attention appropriately? Well, we're not going to teach them there and then. It's going to be when they're in a really calm, happy, excuse me, or gentle tapping on some shoulder can get their attention. How to wait for attention, we're going to teach that. And emotional literacy. So how can they communicate that they might be feeling lonely or they might be feeling left out? That's we should be giving connection before correction, lots of positive connection. So ignoring the challenging behaviour, but not the child. So we might ignore that, that child might be, that could easily escalate into something more, couldn't it, if it doesn't feel connected. If we're escaping and avoiding situations, we need to teach ways to say no, how to ask for breaks, choice making skills, how to attention, and emotional literacy, being able to ask for I need a break. So rather than running away, we can say I need a break. So we could give advanced timers and visual schedules in place, offer choices where possible, and gradually introduce difficult activities. So respect, know when it's safe to do so. It's really important that your child feels that their voice is heard. Otherwise, they are going to take control where they can. And I think it's really important to honour some of these situations. So if you say you're going a break at 12 o'clock, then you need to honour that and give them a break whenever it happens. And then we've got tangible. A lot of you guys will be having challenges with this, especially if we've got older teenagers as well, access to internet, iPads, etc. late at night. This could be really, really challenging. We need to teach our how to wait appropriately, to know when it's available, when it's not available. So we need to make that really clear. We need to be consistent in that as well. Independent skills where possible, and emotional literacy. So when it's not available, a tangible, being able to communicate, actually, I feel quite frustrated about that. I'm disappointed, and having strategies when they are angry about a decision or upset about a decision that's been made. Provide them with regular access to those preferred activities if it's appropriate and safe to do so. Make requesting easy and honour those requests if it's appropriate, and set up the environment so they can help themselves safely if it is appropriate. Depends on the situation, what that tangible thing is. Don't leave them wanting basic needs of regulation. Our basic needs, hunger, thirst, these can all affect our needs and our behaviours. So make sure that's be that your child really enjoys I'll give you an example, a child who really enjoys therapy. Now that child may start stealing blue tack in school because they really like. We could offer that therapy in a little case that they can take to school, and that would meet that need. But we have every child has their own sensory profile. Well, every hypersensitive to some senses, and we can be hyposensitive. But what we need to do is teach them appropriate ways to get that sensory input, when and where sensory activities are okay, provide the support they need, potentially consider an occupational therapy assessment if the behaviours are a bit more complex than you understand, or that you don't really know. You could look at occupational therapy support there. So are you a parent who is reactive? Is it an absolute nightmare at bedtimes or first thing in the morning? Are you like Janet? So I'm just going to play Janet for you now.
Daniel!
I'm too tired.
Daniel, just come downstairs. Your breakfast is ready.
Just 10 more minutes. Just 10 more minutes. Get off.
Right, we need to go now. Come on.
Wait. Go out, please. Just 10 more minutes, man.
No, not 10
Yes,
more minutes.
10 more
Please
minutes.
don't do this today. Just get up, please. Daniel, just calm down, Janet. Just calm down. Count to 5, Janet. Count to 5. 1, 2.
Does anyone else identify with Janet? I certainly did in the past. So what's going on for Janet? Janet is reacting to the morning. The morning is what was happening. So it was the early morning, Monday. Her child was staying in bed. Maybe they had other siblings there. What was the behaviour? Well, Daniel did not want to get out of bed, did he? He was refusing to get up. Was there anyone else involved? It doesn't look like it, but mum was definitely involved. Daniel's voice was quiet and tired, and he was lethargic, wasn't he? What was the consequence? Well, you don't know the whole video, but Daniel fell asleep on the way to school and he didn't have his breakfast. And he was very, very tired. So this is something that you can start making a record of. So here we go. I've just showed you, Monday morning, Daniel stayed in bed. He slept on the way to school. He didn't eat his breakfast. And with this, you can start to build up a bit of a picture of what's going on. Now, initially, you might be falling into the trap of thinking that, well, Daniel's just not had enough sleep. And yes, Daniel didn't have enough sleep. He's finding it difficult to get up in the morning. But what we find out by doing this for a couple of weeks is that it's every Monday morning and something's happening on Monday and it's PE. And Daniel finds it really difficult to get dressed for PE. And so he doesn't want to go to school. So this behaviour serves a function. Because he's late for school, he's missed the start of PE and he gets to get support from his favourite TA. And he doesn't go to PE, he does PE in a different room with one-to-one support. So actually, you need to start recording this information and get a bigger picture. So it could be that you just use your phone, or you could find an ABC. There's a lot of templates online that you can use, or you can just use your phone or a notebook. But what we need to know is A, what was happening, and this word is antecedent. So immediately what was happening in the setting, what was happening just before the behaviour happened. B is the behaviour, what the actual behaviour was, and C was the consequence. And people get a little bit mixed up with this. This is still about Daniel. It's not what the adults did, it's what the child did. And data will give us a bigger picture. So escape and avoidance every month. Of recording this, we might day. So have a little think about that with your child. So I'm going to invite you now to have a bit of a plan, and this could just be, something you're thinking about in your mind, or you could maybe potentially seek professional help to get more support. So first, we're going to identify the behaviour. So choose one behaviour that's really challenging for your family and that might not be in your child's best interests. What does it look like? How often does it happen? How severe is it? How long does it last? Then I want you to determine the function of that behaviour. What does the child get from that behaviour? Then I want you to plan your colours. So what happened? What do they look like in the green zone? What are your early warning signs in the yellow zone? What do you do to stay safe if we get to the red zone? And how will you help them recover in the blue zone? And I want you to think about teaching replacement skills. So what appropriate behaviour can your child learn that will serve the same function of that behaviour? And then and that school staff talk to you about it. Maybe you've got other carers, respite workers, if you get respite support, any of that will support you. So some warning signs: behaviour. You might be reacting more to behaviours. Family stress is really high. You need to seek professional support. So behaviours that pose safety risks, sort of like running, escaping, being on a busy main road, in shopping centres, etc., you might need to get some support with this. So you could look at contacting your local learning disability team for potentially functional assessment, speak to your GP. occupational therapists for sensory assessments, and speech and language therapists for communication support. But if you feel like you can give this a go, complete in 1 week this week, give it a go. Try and identify those early warning signs, those little signs that you get before we escalate. And plan some new strategies to try this week. And that's just an invitation for you to give it a go. As always, you can look on Witherslack group for support, and you can look on our website, the ADHD Foundation, for more support. So we've had a whistle-stop tour, guys. What is behaviour? Why it happens, or the function of behaviour, and I've given you a bit of an invitation to try some strategies. And I think there's a lot of content there in half an hour. So before I end, I just want you to remember challenging behaviour is a form of communication. Try and focus on teaching, not punishing. Less reactive, like Janet. If you watch Janet, she was having a full meltdown in the morning. And consistency across all environments is crucial. So if you are co-parenting in 2 households, try and keep it consistent. I know that's challenging, but it's crucial to get really good positive behaviour support. And your child wants to succeed, to help them to learn how. So Jodie, I just want to hand back to you. Just want to say thank you for listening to me. I'm going to stop sharing because I'm hoping that will
Hello, that was great, Colette. Are you okay to pop your camera back on?
absolutely
Stop sharing and we'll
go
see
for
how
it.
that goes. I
How
can
are you
see you.
doing?
Okay. Oh, thank you so much for another brilliant presentation. You handled the technical issues so well, and thank you for everyone for bearing with us through that. We've had a lot of questions submitted, so we'll try to answer as many as we can. And our first question is, how do we communicate with our children? I have experienced various challenging behaviours over the years, like slamming doors, shouting, destruction of property, etc. We're unable to sit down and talk to her about anything. We literally can't communicate with her without her thinking we're having a go at her. Do you have any advice?
Yeah, it's about time again. If you remember, we were looking at zones. So if we're going to try and talk to our children are escalated, whether they're just a little bit triggered or they're in the red zone and they're slamming doors and they're just, out of control, then is not the time. Their brains are not online. If we think about, when we flip our lid, I hope you can see my hand here. So this is our little brain. When we flip our lid and we're into all this rationality and thought and thinking about consequences, it's offline. So you're wasting your time. The time to talk to our children about behaviour, potentially planning for or teaching them new skills. So when you're upset, you can do this. This is something you can do. Is when they are calm, happy, and ready to receive that information. I would always say calm, happy, ready to learn. And I don't just mean teaching, I mean ready to learn, to receive information, have a conversation. So think about the time that you have those conversations. Think about the behaviour as a specific behaviour. What's happening in that behaviour that child gets something from it? So if slamming the doors and going to the room means they don't speak to you, the function of that behaviour could potentially be escape and avoidance, isn't it? They don't want to talk about it because actually they are getting their needs met. They're not ready to hear it. I hope that helps thinking about when to have these conversations and how to have these conversations. Does that help, Jodie?
Great, thank you. We
Thank
have a
you.
similar question, but this question is, my child hits me and shares that it makes him feel good when he does it. We have a discussion about this when he's calmed down, but do you have any advice for this?
Okay, so child hits parent and then it makes them feel good, did you say?
Yes.
So initially, my first thought would be, is this appropriate? Is this a sensory impact? Are they getting something from hitting the actual physical? Because when we hit something, when we slap something, we get lots of sense into our touch senses. I think it'd be really, really interesting to for this parent to really look at potentially sensory, their sensory profile. So it could be that we meet that need. I give something to hit, that's something that is appropriate. I can't go into more detail without knowing more about it, but the function of the behaviour, if that child hits, what does the parent do? Consequence of that. Again, we'll go back to ABC. So what was happening just before? The behaviour itself, what did that child do? And then the consequence, and that's not what other people did, what consequence was put in place, what happened for that child. If we take as a sort of hypothesis that they are getting proprioceptive, touch input and proprioceptive input from moving and hitting mum, they are so just before they were potentially feeling dysregulated, then they use this motion and they get that input, and the consequence of that is that they're regulated. It's not appropriate way of feeling regulated, but potentially that could be meeting their need. But I think you need to look at getting support with occupational therapy and really getting some data. So when this happens, record what happens. A, B, C, what was happening before, antecedent, what was the behaviour, and then what was the consequence. Is that okay?
Yeah, that was great, Colette. Thank you. Our next question is, how do I convince my son to go to bed at a reasonable time? And how to convince him to take his melatonin. The melatonin really helps him go to sleep and improves his mood. He's doing really well on it, but he's suddenly decided he doesn't want to take it anymore. Do you have any advice?
Oh, this is really, really common. Just so you know, when with medication, it can be really challenging because what is it? So think about the function of the behaviour. Why do you think that they don't want to take the medication? So think about the behaviour, what's actually happening there and then, what was happening before. So maybe they were having some nice time on let's give an example, the Xbox, and then it's like time for medication. Now, the function of that medication is to get to fall asleep, and actually that child might not want to go to sleep yet. So there's a bit of resistance there. So how can we talk about that? We need to have a firm and fair kind of structure of the evening so that they feel that they're getting that time, potentially with an activity or with interactions with you, and then they fall asleep. So I would say try start recording what's actually going on. So what was happening immediately before, what was the behaviour, and then what was the consequence of medication. We need children to be engaged with this and understand. And again, we go back to when we're going to teach this and talk about this, when they are calm and happy, not at bedtime. Bedtime's not the time to talk about it. It's really complex, and I'm not going to be able to give you like a step-by-step do this, but I think you've got a few places to go there with it. So think about, are they feeling that they're missing out on something? It would be my question to you. Is something going on when they fall asleep that they don't want to miss out on? Thanks,
That was great, Colette. Thank you. Our next question is, do you have any advice for my kids not letting me speak to other adults without attacking me? If I try to talk to anyone, I get bitten or hurt. I can't have anyone in my home other than grandparents. I can't have friends or a support network. My children have autism. Do you have any advice?
Wow, that is really complex. That's a really complex one. The behaviour, so the function of that behaviour is it's tangible really, isn't it? Think about it, if I give you an overview of my take on it. So you are tangible and the house is tangible, and it's that belongs to them. And so by biting or hurting you, we get people away from that tangible thing, the thing that we feel safe and sound in. Now, there could be another aspect to this, and it could be sensory. So when other people come into our environment, they're going to bring more senses, they're going to bring sounds, people are going to have smells. Even if you're autistic, you can be really sensitive to some smells. you really need to think about getting support with this one, because this one is quite complex. But I would be recording data again, exactly the same, ABC, what was what the behaviour was and what the consequence would be. I'm just going to give you an example quickly because we've got a little bit of time, if that's all right, Jodie. So I worked with a young man on and off through Key Stage 3, and they were really aversive to sound, to the point where they didn't want sound in their home, and they didn't want parents to speak, siblings talk, because the talking would trigger them and that could cause aggression. And so everyone in the family let that happen and supported that behaviour wasn't the best approach for that young man. It was isolating the family, and it actually wasn't working for anyone really. It even wasn't working for that young man, because he didn't know when someone would speak. And in school, that behaviour started to show its face. So what we did was we taught that young person skills. When it's too loud, you can take yourself away. You can say ear defenders, you can take yourself away, and we can teach them new skills that will be in their best interest, that won't cause harm to others. And it is possible. So I just want to give you a bit of optimism, but I think if you believe that, you know, you can continue your life being hit, if you speak to another, you can do this, you can get the support, and you can actually move on from this.